G'day guys, SemiX2 here. Today we have some brand new Rugby 24 news, so let's dive right into it. Ross Simmons, who is the CEO of Big Ant Studios, who are the developers of Rugby 24, have been very active on Twitter and the Big Ant forums within the last couple of days, so let's dive right into it. First of all, he has posted a couple of photos and videos. The first one was him at Cardiff Rugby, who are a part of the URC, also showing Cardiff Rugby Stadium. The second one being Newport Dragons, who are also a part of the URC. And then the third one, which he posted yesterday, was him at Murrayfield Stadium in Edinburgh, home of Edinburgh Rugby and the Scottish Rugby Union team. This is pretty amazing. It's showing that the guys are getting around and capturing all the players and stadiums for Rugby 24. Ross further tweeted that he will be sharing nearly a new photo every day as Big Ant make their way around the UK to capture clubs and players' photos. I tweeted at Ross asking if each club will also have their stadium captured in this game, and he said where we are we can, but of course there are licensing constraints, so not every team will have their stadium in the game. This to me is fantastic news, as the last few Rugby 22 2018 games have featured the same generic stadiums, so having real stadiums included in the game is a big win, as personally adds a layer of depth and to the player experience. We also received some big news from Ross stating that women's teams will be included, which we previously thought wasn't the case due to an article by The Loadout. I asked Ross about this in the forums and he said that article was fake, so that's some new news there, meaning that we will have some women's international teams and maybe even some club teams included. Moving on, we also received from Ross what the plans are for early access. Big Ant say they want at least 6 fully licensed teams and 1 or 2 fully licensed competitions to be ready for early access, plus a handful of women's international sides as well. With the 6 fully licensed teams, I'm assuming they mean international teams, along with those 1 or 2 licensed club competitions. Now you might be thinking, if Rugby 24 was meant to launch before the Rugby World Cup, why isn't these early access plans already met? Well, Ross has also given us an insight into the issues the studio has faced while developing Rugby 24 and what their goal is for early access. Here is what Ross outlined in the Big Ant Studios forums. There's never been a united rugby game. There's good reason why in the past some games have had a few licenses and another had a different couple. Just in case you haven't noticed, the unions can be difficult to deal with. They are a separate set of organisations that can sometimes agree on little and have self-interest motivating them. We have managed to unite most of them, but still have to capture them whenever we are allowed to do so. Our plan is to take our time and make a united game, a complete game, setting a platform for rugby games to be competitive with other sports on a global scale. It will take as long as it takes to get right. Then in brackets he said, that said, a handful of nations have been really awesome to us and very patient, particularly England, they get it. So what this means is basically the unions are being a pain in the ass to Big Ant Studios. They're trying to get players scanned, they're trying to get stadiums captured, but obviously the unions don't realise the motivation and the reasoning behind this, and it's taking their time. But it looks like they're on track now, and hopefully that all happens in the next few weeks to get the game out as soon as possible. The next tweet he says, the plans were in place to get these teams scanned before the Rugby World Cup, but never ever have we had such issues with capturing the talent in a sport that we have of rugby. I never foresaw how hard it would be. We're on the right track now with the clubs and getting the internationals that way. What that means is they are now able to access the clubs to scan players and stadiums. And what Big Ant Studios are doing is, by accessing the clubs, they're going to build the international teams from the club scans. And here's an example he gave us. We captured the Wallabies and New Zealand in Melbourne 18 months ago at the Bledisloe. Most other nations stalled us and then the teams went out of date, which are now requiring recapture. Then there was the Rugby World Cup, so they wouldn't let us into the camps to capture them then, and then the same thing happened with the Six Nations, etc, etc. We will capture the international sides by capturing the clubs. We've never had to embark on such an exercise over any game. Then Ross further said, at the moment we are concentrating on Premiership and URC to gain as many internationals as we can, enabling the early access to go live. That said, we have captured some national sides. Now, this is a lot of information. Basically what it means, the unions have stalled any captures of clubs, and that has forced Big Ant to re-evaluate their plans. But it looks to all be happening now, which is a great sign of things to come. Moving on to a few more licensing topics. Someone tweeted at Ross asking if the Welsh Rugby Premiership would be licensed, which is the division below the Welsh URC sides, and Ross replied perhaps one day, but at the moment we haven't gone to that level of the pyramid. However, we have our own creation tool, so players will be able to create their own competitions in the meantime. Another person asked if the Japan Rugby League 1, which is the Japanese league, will be licensed, and this one is a bit confusing to me, as Ross said yes, we have Japan, the international team license, however their competition has not been for this version. Now, I don't know what this means when he said this version. I don't know if that means the Japan competition will be in the full game, but just not the early access, or maybe he just means it's not in Rugby 24, but hopefully it will be in the next rugby game we make. Who knows? Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts down in the comments and make sure to drop a like. This is the most news we have gotten for Rugby 24 in a long while now. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll catch you later.